Hey guys, so I actually wanted to start this video a little bit differently than I've started some other videos in the past. We are on a play pause it video right here. Um, it's a play pause that we've done at some point last week, but I wanted to talk really quickly about adding mathematical symbols into your answers. So I told you before that you were able to do that, and a lot of people had some questions about what to do, so I wanted to show you really quickly. If you need to add mathematical symbols or you want to write an equation or something in PlayPosit, you're going to first click on Add Rich Text. And once you do that, it's going to open up this new menu of options here. And if you click on this button that says FX, it allows you to insert an equation. And now we have all these mathematical symbols that we didn't have access to before. So if I was trying to tell you that x was less than or equal to 5, I would just type in x. I'd find the less than or equal sign, and then I'd put 5. X is less than or equal to 5. On the bottom here, you always see a preview of what is it going to look like when you submit your answer. So up here, that's the code, and the code looks kind of funny, but then you see down in the preview what it's actually going to look like when you submit that code. The other one that you might need to use is the fraction option. So when I click on the fraction option, it just creates this little spot where I can put the top of the fraction in the first bracket, like 5x plus 1, and the bottom of the fraction in the other, like 7. And when I do that, it generates that preview. You can see how it turns the LaTeX code into an answer for you to submit. So you just go ahead and click Insert if that was your answer. That will insert it over here, and then you submit your answer. And you might need to use that in today's lesson because we're going to be talking about inequalities, and we don't always have all the symbols we need to talk about inequalities available to us on our keyboard. So really the focus of today's lesson, moving on from that, is we're going to be taking a look at 3 examples of inequalities, of compound inequalities. We're going to try to graph them, and we're going to try to write intervals. So the first question that I want you to try to do is on the board right now. I'd like you to take a moment. I'm going to pause this, and I want to see what you come up with as your answer. I want your final answer to be submitted to me as an interval. As an interval. That means it has a parentheses or a bracket in it, depending on the symbols. Go for it. Cool. So the first step to solving this set of inequalities here is to treat them individually. So I'm going to take my 3n minus 8 is greater than negative 26. Sorry. It helps when we write things correctly. My 26. And I've got my minus 3n plus 1 is greater than negative 5. On this one, I'm going to have to add my 8. I'm going to get 3n greater than negative 18. I'm going to divide by 3, and I'm going to get n is greater than negative 6. On the other side, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. I'm going to get negative 3n is greater than negative 6. I will divide by negative 3. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and because we divided by that negative, our inequality is going to flip to a less than symbol. Now let's think about how this is going to be graphed. All right. In order to graph this, we've got to think about n greater than negative 6. Well, negative 6 is over here somewhere, and we're going to use an open circle symbol. That open circle symbol represents that we're not going to include negative 6. All the things greater than negative 6 are the things that are to the right of it. So I'm going to just kind of color all of that in. Those are all the things greater than negative 6. Or n is going to be less than 2. So if n is going to be less than 2, I'm going to go open circle on the 2, and I'm going to color in everything to the left of that. And what we see here, if we talk about what have we colored in, this is an or question. So what things are being colored in here? Well, everything's being colored in here. Therefore, our interval is going to run from negative infinity to infinity. It's going to be all real numbers. Cool. So let's take a look at another question here. Let's take a look at another one. We've got negative 10n plus 3 is less than 13. And negative 7 minus 10n is less than negative 107. I want you to try to solve this one, and I want you to submit what you think the interval is. Okay, so again, we're going to treat this like 2 questions. We'll subtract 3 from both sides, and we're going to get negative 10n is less than 10. We'll divide by negative 10. 10 divided by negative 10 is negative 1, and because I divided by a negative, I flipped my inequality. On the other side, I'm going to get a plus 7 plus 7. Negative 10n is less than negative 100. Divide by negative 10. Negative 10 divided by, negative 100 divided by negative 10 is a positive 10. And we're going to get n is greater than 10. And let's think about how we're going to graph that. So we're going to start with n is greater than negative 1. So to be greater than negative 1, I'm going to have an open circle on my negative 1, which is somewhere around there. And I'm going to shade this thing in to the right, greater than, all of that. Let's go to a yellow color. We're going to go greater than. So all of that is shaded in because it's greater than negative 1. I also need to be greater than 10. And to be greater than 10, it's going to be an open circle on 10, and it's going to be shaded in also to the right, like that. So if we think about where this thing is both greater than negative 1 and greater than 10, we're looking for the areas where these colors are overlapping, and that's happening all the way over here. Those are all the numbers, like 11, for example. 11 is a great example. 11 is a number that is greater than 10 and a number that is greater than negative 1. So when we think about all the answers that are greater than negative 1 and all the answers that are greater than 10, we're looking for any number bigger than 10. My interval, therefore, is going to run from starting at 10 until infinity. That's where these two things are overlapping. Okay, so there's one more question for us to look at. And this one I want to walk through with you because it's a little bit different than anything we've seen before. This compound inequality is an AND inequality. Whenever I see that there's multiple inequality symbols, like there and there, we're talking about an AND. And this AND inequality is just written in a little bit different way. It's saying that my variable here is sitting between 6 and negative 30. So in order to kind of solve this, we're actually going to treat this the same way we treat an equation, but instead of having two sides, this thing has three sides. If I want to get this 6a all by itself, I've got to get rid of this 6. And if I get rid of the 6 in the middle, I've got to get rid of the 6 on the right, and I've got to get rid of the 6 on the left. And that's going to give me 6 minus 6 is 0, less than or equal to 6a, less than or equal to negative 36. I'm going to divide everything by 6, and I'm going to get 0 is less than or equal to a is less than or equal to negative 6. And now let's think about how this could graph. So I'm going to start here. This says that a is less than or equal to negative 6. To be less than or equal to negative 6, I'd have to have a solid circle here, and I'd have to be going that direction. That's what less than or equal to negative 6 looks like. This thing over here says that 0 is less than a. Well, what kinds of numbers are 0 less than? 0 is less than 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. This one's going to graph from 0 to the right. So when we go looking for the interval here, when we go looking for where is my answer, what kind of numbers are bigger than 0 and at the same time smaller than negative 6? The answer is there aren't any answers. We get an empty set. There are no solutions to this problem. That's not always going to be the case when a question looks like this. In fact, most of the time there will be solutions. But in this case, since it is an AND question that looks like an OR question, we're going to get no solution. So hopefully you took some good notes from these three questions. Hopefully we got a little bit of a reminder, because I know it's difficult over the weekend to remember everything we're supposed to remember. And we will come back next week ready to go. All right, cool. See you guys tomorrow.